Hi, this is Yaffi Lvova, registered dietitian nutritionist with Baby Bloom Nutrition. Sorry, sitting in my beautiful sukkah that my husband built me in my backyard. This is a wonderful holiday where we spend a lot of time outside, and I'm really enjoying it. So you get to join me. And today, for Nap Time Nutrition, we are talking about calcium. It's been in the news a lot lately, and with more and more kids seeming to be adverse to dairy, usually not through lactose intolerance, usually through a milk protein allergy, there's a lot of concern about the calcium that is in or is not in their diets and how much they need and how to get it and the bioavailability and the whole supplementation issue. There's a whole controversy going on right now with some recent research, and I'm going to try to touch on all that. If you're joining me live, please feel free to post any questions, and if you're watching this later on, you can post any of your questions in the comment section, and I'll get back to them as soon as possible. So the purpose of calcium is to make your bones and teeth strong, but also to help maintain a healthy nervous system and muscle function. And it also has something to do with the secretion of hormones and hormone regulation in the body. So calcium is super important. There aren't really established needs for infants. I did find some information from, I think it was the NIH. So 0 to 6 months, they need about 200 milligrams per day. 7 to 12 months, 260 milligrams per day, and that's the same regardless of gender. It does differentiate later in life. So between the ages of 1 and 3, 700 milligrams are required per day, and between the ages of 4 and 8, about 1,000 milligrams per day is required. It goes up from there and then down, so if you're watching this and you have a small child, chances are you also need about 1,000 milligrams of calcium per day. Also, that goes with vitamin D. The recommendations for vitamin D from 4 to 8 years are 600 IU per day, and that can be through sunlight or that could be through food or supplementation. Lots of different ways to get vitamin D, and I'm sure I'm going to do a different nap time nutrition on vitamin D because it's super important and has been really in the news a lot lately in the past few years. So sources. This has been a controversy in and of itself because some people feel that pushing dairy has its own political agenda. So I'm not going to get into politics with this talk. I am going to talk about alternative sources because not only do you have people who choose to lead a vegetarian or vegan lifestyle, but you also have plenty of people who are lactose intolerant or, as I mentioned, who are younger, who have milk protein allergies, which, by the way, chances are they're going to outgrow by the age of 6 if it's a milk protein allergy. So hang in there. There's still hope for your kids to enjoy ice cream later on in life. Not that I'm advocating. So milk, straight milk for comparison, has half a cup of milk, there are 150 milligrams of calcium. In cheese, half an ounce has between 100, 110, 115, depending on the type of cheese. Yogurt, half a cup has 207 milligrams of calcium. And those are really the number one pushed forms of calcium in the United States. So for comparison, let's go into some non-dairy sources. Tofu, when it's calcium set, there are different ways to prepare tofu, and this is the processing before it gets to you. The calcium set tofu in 1/4 cup has 217 milligrams of calcium. So comparing that to half a cup of milk, it actually has substantially more calcium than half a cup of milk. And this is the calcium set tofu, not the nigiri set. And I couldn't explain really the difference between them aside from right now the calcium content. Blackstrap molasses in 1 tablespoon has 172 milligrams of calcium. Spinach in a 1/4 cup has 60 milligrams, but I'll talk about the bioavailability, which means your body's ability to absorb that calcium. That's a whole other issue. Fortified cereals, it's going to depend on the actual cereal, but in half a cup of cereal you have about 51 milligrams. And keeping in mind, if we're talking about a toddler, 1 to 3 years old, you need 700 milligrams per day. Broccoli, half a cup of broccoli has 20 milligrams. So in order to get your full amount of calcium strictly from broccoli, your toddler would have to consume 17.5 cups of broccoli. I don't think I could do that, and I love broccoli. But only 7 cups of kale, only, or 9.5 cups of bok choy, which are also good sources of calcium. So let's talk about absorption. There aren't really any nutrients that you absorb all by themselves. They come in pairs, and sometimes the pairs will inhibit each other, and sometimes they'll help each other. So the nutrients that help absorb help absorb calcium into the body include vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin K, magnesium, and boron. So things that will impair your absorption are sodium, too much protein, which I've talked about in a different talk. I've talked about your needs for protein. So too much protein affects your absorption of calcium. Phosphorus, which you'll find in soda, and also alcohol, caffeine, and smoking. So for sure your toddler should not be using alcohol or caffeine or smoking. As if you didn't know that part, but let's stay off the soda also. So here's the big deal with the bioavailability, and as I mentioned, bioavailability is your body's ability to actually absorb the calcium from whatever you're eating. Thanks for the LOL. I know you, and I don't think you're giving your child alcohol, caffeine, or cigarettes, or chewing tobacco for that matter. Thanks. So the bioavailability is higher in milk and dairy products than it is in other non-dairy sources because dairy doesn't contain oxalates and phytates. And those are binding factors in fruits and vegetables. And it's not in all fruits and vegetables, but in order to maintain adequate calcium intake, when you're not having dairy, you need to make sure to have low oxalate fruits and vegetables. So there's higher bioavailability from lower oxalate fruits and vegetables. And examples of that, as I had mentioned earlier, are broccoli, kale, and bok choy. There are some others. Tofu is also fairly low in oxalates. And this is not a strict rule. There's more ongoing research. There was a lot of research done with Chinese vegetables, and certain things that were high in oxalates had high bioavailability, which doesn't make too much sense. And there were certain things that were lower that also had low absorption, and we can't explain that. It's possible that there are certain components to specific fruits and vegetables that will increase their availability of calcium to the body. And so we don't know that yet. And I always come back to this, that we don't know everything about food. We know what we know, and that's the best that we have right now, but maintaining a varied diet of whole food sources is your best way to get adequate nutrition, because we are going to be finding out more information as time goes on. If you think about what we knew 50 years ago, we know so much more now. So there's a possibility that there is a compound in certain fruits and vegetables that increases the body's ability to absorb calcium from them, and likely other nutrients as well. So the controversy with supplementation, there was research that came out recently that said that calcium supplementation, even fairly moderate supplementation, caused buildup in the arteries, which increased your chances for stroke and heart attack. And this is really concerning, but we haven't really talked about the interplay between the different nutrients in the body. I did mention that vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin K, magnesium, and boron help to increase your calcium. And this research that comes out saying that calcium supplementation is linked to heart attack and stroke didn't really take much of that into account, didn't take your serum levels of those vitamins into account. It's very difficult to test your level of calcium in your body because your body regulates it very tightly, meaning that anyone who's tested for their level of calcium is likely going to show as normal, because if they're low, your body is just going to take it from your main calcium stores, which is your bones. So even though you're showing that you have a normal calcium level in your serum, which is a component of your blood, it doesn't mean that your calcium intake is adequate to maintain your bones, teeth, and your healthy nervous system and muscle function. So we have to go to different type of testing. We have to test the actual calcium and magnesium levels in your red blood cells rather than in the serum. So that's something to discuss with your doctor if you're very concerned about it. If you're going to use a calcium supplement for either you or your child, you want to make sure that in that supplement you have calcium, magnesium, vitamin D, and vitamin K together. And if your supplement doesn't contain all of those, you might have to supplement those separately but at the same time, because you want your body to truly absorb that calcium and put it where it needs to go so it doesn't get deposited in your arteries and lead to heart attack and stroke, as I mentioned. If you look at any given multivitamin, it doesn't have a lot of calcium. You're looking at maybe 10% of your calcium needs for the day, because calcium is a very bulky vitamin, and it's not going to, you'd have to have a really high dosage of that vitamin in order to achieve your adequate calcium. So, moral of the story, if you are following a diet that doesn't have dairy for either lifestyle reasons or maybe religious reasons or just intestinal reasons, you want to make sure that your sources of calcium are bioavailable, meaning that your fruits and vegetables that you choose are low in oxalates. And I'm going to put a link in the comments when I'm done with this video. There was a really great article that had only the high bioavailable calcium vegetarian sources and what their amounts were. So tofu is a great source of calcium. Blackstrap molasses has a very powerful flavor. You can replace some sugar with it in recipes, but that's a good source as well. But spinach is high in oxalates, so it does have a lot of calcium, but it's not necessarily available to your body. Doesn't seem like I have any questions at the moment, but I will be watching the comments section throughout the day and, well, throughout the week. And if you have any questions, please feel free to post, or if you have any comments. And I don't have a topic for next week, so if you have a suggestion, I am open to it. And it will be next Wednesday, not next Tuesday, same as today, and then I'll get back on schedule unless this baby decides to join us. And well, I look forward to your questions. Thanks. You can join me at babybloomnutrition.com and on Instagram and Pinterest, pinterest.com/Yaffi. Thanks.